What happened when an undercover CEO decided to uncover the truth behind the dysfunction within his own company? Today, we're diving into an inspiring story of leadership and change. Michael, the CEO of a growing mobile phone retail chain, took a bold step to go undercover after hearing troubling reports of employee exploitation and poor customer service. What he discovered was shocking: deep-rooted issues that were damaging both his employees and his customers. Stay tuned to find out how Michael's undercover journey led to a complete transformation of his business, restoring trust, empathy, and integrity. Michael Hartley sat at his polished desk, staring at the growing stack of customer complaints that had been coming in from across his chain of mobile phone stores. As the CEO and founder of the company, he had spent years cultivating a reputation for excellent customer service and high-quality products. He had built the business from the ground up, starting with a single location and expanding into a respected brand with multiple stores nationwide. For years, the company had prided itself on its focus on customer satisfaction and employee well-being. But recently, something felt off. The complaints weren't about minor inconveniences, they were concerning. Customers reported being treated dismissively by staff, rude interactions, and an overall cold atmosphere at several locations. The worst complaint came from a store that had once been one of his top performers. Guests mentioned being ignored at the front desk, staff members acting unprofessional, and even some reports about being judged for their appearance. Michael felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he read through each complaint. He knew something had gone wrong, but he couldn't quite pinpoint it. It was unsettling. He had worked too hard to build this company to watch it slip away. Yet when he sent his district manager to inspect the store, the report he received was vague and didn't seem to address the deeper, systemic issues. Everything seemed fine, but Michael knew that fine wasn't good enough. He couldn't rely on secondhand reports anymore. He needed to see the reality himself. Michael decided to take drastic action. He was going to go undercover. He would immerse himself in the daily operations of his business, observing firsthand what was happening on the ground. It was risky, but Michael had always believed in leading by example, and this was the only way he could truly understand the issues. After all, if the company's culture was eroding from within, he needed to experience it directly. So with a sense of urgency, he prepared to step away from his CEO role and into the shoes of a regular sales associate, someone who could blend in without anyone recognizing him. It was time to discover what was really happening inside his company. Michael's transformation into an ordinary employee wasn't just about gathering information. It was about seeing the truth without the bias of authority, without the polished reports that could easily mask deeper problems. This wasn't about confronting a single employee or addressing minor issues. It was about uncovering the underlying culture of his business. As Michael prepared for his undercover journey, he realized that it wasn't just about fixing isolated problems. It was about restoring his company's foundation and ensuring that the values he had worked so hard to instill were still intact. He was ready to face whatever reality awaited him in the stores, even if it meant challenging the very core of what he had built. Michael Hartley transformed himself from the polished CEO of a successful mobile phone retail chain into an ordinary sales associate, ready to walk the floors of his stores unnoticed. He knew the key to his undercover operation was to strip away every hint of his executive position. No designer suits, no flashy accessories, and definitely no office desk. Instead, he donned a simple uniform, a faded name tag, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. He even allowed his usually neat appearance to take a more casual and unkempt turn. With messy hair and an unshaven face, his disguise was subtle but effective. The average customer or employee wouldn't look twice at him. The change wasn't just in his appearance, though. Michael adopted the persona of Chris, an eager, fresh-faced associate, eager to learn the ropes and climb the ladder. He applied for a sales position at one of his own stores, ensuring his identity would be shielded behind the uniform and the duties of an everyday employee. As he walked into the store for his first shift, he felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. For years, Michael had sat comfortably in the boardroom, making high-level decisions and overseeing the expansion of his business. But now he was stepping into a world of customer complaints, understaffing, and the realities of frontline work. The shift felt surreal, but Michael kept his focus on his mission: to observe the environment, the staff, and how customers were being treated. As he began interacting with the other employees, Michael noticed the distance between the floor staff and management. It was as if the frontline workers were isolated from the decision-makers, their concerns and frustrations ignored by the higher-ups. This alienation was something Michael had never fully understood from his position at the top, but now it was impossible to ignore. Employees were tired, stressed, and dealing with customer complaints on a daily basis without the support they needed. Michael's experience as an undercover associate quickly shifted his perspective on leadership. He wasn't just learning about the operational gaps or inefficiencies, but also about the cultural shift that had taken place within his company. The values of empathy, respect, and customer care that had once defined the brand now seemed like distant memories. Michael knew this mission was about more than just uncovering the truth. It was about figuring out how to rebuild his company's heart and soul. As Michael settled into his new role as Chris, he quickly became immersed in the daily operations of the store, but what he observed was deeply concerning. The dysfunction in the store was palpable, manifesting in every corner of the business. From the moment he walked in, Michael noticed a severe lack of direction. The store's floor was crowded, disorganized, and chaotic. The shelves, though stocked with mobile devices, were poorly arranged, making it difficult for customers to find what they were looking for. Items that should have been neatly displayed were scattered or hidden behind counters, creating a frustrating shopping experience. The store felt like it was running on autopilot, and it wasn't long before Michael noticed that the employees were doing their best to manage the madness without adequate support. The staff, clearly overworked and underappreciated, moved through their shifts with tired eyes and unenthusiastic expressions. It became obvious that they were not motivated by a sense of pride in their work, but rather by a need to just get through the day. Conversations among the employees were often punctuated by complaints about the lack of proper training, understaffing, and disorganized management. They were frequently forced to handle technical issues with customers without the proper resources or support. When an employee made a mistake, they were reprimanded without understanding the root causes, leading to frustration and even resentment. One of the most glaring issues was the lack of leadership on the floor. The store manager, Greg, appeared to have little interest in overseeing the daily operations or offering guidance. Instead, he spent much of his time in the back office, only emerging when there was a problem, and even then his presence did little to resolve the issues. Greg's management style, or lack thereof, created a disconnect between the frontline staff and the higher levels of management. Michael witnessed firsthand how Greg's indifference made the employees feel neglected and unheard. Without leadership, there was no team cohesion, and the staff struggled to deliver a cohesive customer experience. When a customer expressed dissatisfaction, employees seemed unsure of how to handle the situation, and Greg's lack of response only exacerbated the tension. Michael could see how this environment was eroding the company's reputation. Customers were frustrated with the poor service, and employees were on the brink of burnout. As the day wore on, Michael's sense of urgency grew. The dysfunction was not only harming the business, it was actively driving it into decline. He knew that in order to fix the problems at this store, he would need to address the deep-seated cultural issues and break the cycle of mismanagement. But the road ahead would be difficult. The issues ran deeper than just a few misplaced products or an overworked staff. It was a breakdown in the company's values, leadership, and internal communication. This store was a microcosm of a larger problem, one that Michael was now fully aware of, and he was determined to do something about it. As Michael continued to observe the store's daily operations, it became increasingly clear that the problems went far beyond poor organization and lack of leadership. Employee exploitation and neglect were rampant. The staff was stretched thin, often working long shifts with minimal breaks. The lack of proper scheduling meant that employees were frequently left to cover shifts at the last minute, resulting in burnout and resentment. Michael spoke with several of the employees during breaks, and the stories were troubling. They expressed feeling undervalued and unappreciated, as though their hard work was being taken for granted. It became evident that the management was exploiting their dedication without offering any form of recognition or reward. Employees were expected to meet unrealistic sales targets without the tools or training necessary to succeed. When they failed to meet those targets, they faced reprimands. or were made to feel guilty for not doing more with the limited resources they had. Despite the constant pressure, there was no encouragement or positive reinforcement for hitting goals, and no systems in place to help them improve. Furthermore, Michael discovered that there were severe issues with the training programs. Many new employees were thrown into customer-facing roles without adequate preparation, leaving them to figure things out on their own. This lack of investment in employee development led to confusion and errors which only contributed to the growing frustration within the team. It wasn't just the lack of formal training, there was also a distinct absence of support. When employees had questions or encountered issues that required managerial intervention, Greg, the store manager, was rarely available to offer guidance. On the rare occasions that Greg did appear, he often provided vague answers or simply ignored the issue, leaving employees to fend for themselves. This neglect extended to the overall treatment of employees. When they voiced concerns about understaffing or expressed frustration with the workload, they were either ignored or dismissed with comments like, "It's part of the job." The company's policies seemed designed to push employees as far as possible without offering any relief. The working conditions were becoming increasingly untenable. Employees felt like they were being exploited, expected to perform at high levels without the necessary support, recognition, or compensation. Michael could see how this toxic work environment not only affected employee morale, but also led to a high turnover rate. Several employees had already quit, and others were on the verge of leaving. The lack of job security and the constant stress of an under-supported workplace left many feeling trapped and disillusioned. As Michael continued to witness these patterns of exploitation, his frustration grew. The employees were the backbone of the business, but the company treated them like disposable resources. If something didn't change, the store would continue to spiral into dysfunction, affecting both the employees' well-being and the customer experience. Michael knew that before he could address the company's external reputation, he would need to take a hard look at how employees were treated and implement sweeping changes to create a healthier, more supportive work environment. As Michael continued his undercover work, he made it a point to observe how employees interacted with customers, and what he saw was equally troubling. The lack of training and low morale among the staff was clearly evident in their customer service. One afternoon, Michael watched as a customer approached a sales associate, asking about the latest phone model. The employee, clearly overwhelmed and underprepared, fumbled through his notes and stammered out a half-hearted response. Instead of engaging with the customer, he hurriedly pointed to the display shelves and muttered, "Everything's there, you can check it out." The customer, unsure of whether to ask more questions, looked visibly frustrated and walked away. This kind of interaction wasn't isolated. Michael saw it repeatedly throughout his shifts. Employees were either too distracted by their own workloads or too disengaged from the tasks at hand to provide the level of customer service the company claimed to prioritize. Some employees openly complained about the pressure to upsell products, but without the right training or tools to make these sales effectively. The result was that many customers left without making purchases, and others grew visibly irritated by the lack of attention. Michael also witnessed numerous instances of customers being ignored entirely. One elderly woman, confused by a simple phone setup, stood at the counter for several minutes waiting for help. Despite there being 3 employees nearby, no one acknowledged her presence. She eventually left, muttering something under her breath, while the employees continued to chat amongst themselves. It was a clear sign that the culture of neglect was not just internal, but also outwardly affecting the customer experience. There were occasional moments where employees tried to assist customers, but these were few and far between. When help was offered, it was often minimal and unenthusiastic. Michael could see that the staff didn't feel empowered or supported enough to go the extra mile for customers. This lack of customer engagement was directly tied to the dysfunction within the store. It wasn't just about poor customer service. It was a direct reflection of how the employees themselves were treated. The disregard for the customers mirrored the neglect the employees felt from management. Michael knew that in order to turn the store around, it would take more than just fixing the internal issues. A shift in attitude was necessary, both from the management and the staff, if the store was to truly meet customer expectations. The employees needed to feel valued and equipped to deliver exceptional service, which, in turn, would lead to improved customer experiences and satisfaction. After weeks of observing the dysfunction and exploitation within the store, Michael knew it was time to confront the management and reveal his identity. The final straw came one evening when he overheard a conversation between two employees about how the store manager, Tim, had ignored multiple safety concerns. One of the employees, Sarah, mentioned how the stockroom shelves were dangerously overpacked, but Tim had brushed it off, saying, "It's not a big deal, just keep working." This was a critical turning point for Michael. He realized that the neglect was not only affecting the staff, but also creating a hazardous environment. It was time to act. The next morning, Michael walked into the store as usual, but this time he had a different purpose. He approached Tim's office, his heart pounding. After a deep breath, he knocked on the door. Tim looked up, clearly surprised to see him standing there. "Can I help you?" Tim asked, his tone curt. Michael stepped inside, his voice steady as he said, "Actually, I'm here to help you. You see, I've been working here undercover for the past few weeks. My name's Michael Anderson and I own this store." Tim's face froze in disbelief. "What?" he stammered, clearly shaken by the revelation. Michael continued, "I've seen the way things are run here, and it's not just bad management. It's neglect and exploitation of both the employees and the customers. I've observed how unsafe the stockroom is, the poor training your staff receives, and the lack of genuine customer service." Tim's demeanor shifted from surprise to defensiveness. "Look, it's not as bad as you're making it sound," he protested, his voice growing anxious. Michael didn't back down. "No, Tim, it's worse. I've seen employees working overtime without compensation, constant understaffing, and an overall lack of leadership. This store is failing, and you're failing your team." The silence that followed was heavy. Tim shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but Michael wasn't finished. "I'm not here to reprimand you just for the sake of it. I'm here because I want this store to be better, but that starts with accountability." Michael handed Tim a folder containing the documented evidence he had collected over the weeks: employee complaints, safety issues, and sales reports. "This needs to change, and it starts with you. If you're not willing to make these changes, I'll have to make them for you." Tim remained silent, his face pale as the weight of the situation sank in. This confrontation, though uncomfortable, was the beginning of a much-needed transformation. In the wake of the confrontation with Tim, Michael knew that simply exposing the issues wasn't enough. He had to take immediate, tangible steps to fix the broken culture that had taken root in the store. Michael's first priority was to address the employee exploitation and neglect. He immediately ordered a full review of the store's policies, focusing on employee compensation, safety, and working conditions. He set up a meeting with the staff and made it clear that the changes would start from the ground up. Michael promised that employees would no longer be overworked without adequate pay, and overtime would be fairly compensated moving forward. To address the safety concerns, Michael hired an external team to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the store's facilities. The stockroom shelves that had been overcrowded and improperly stocked would be reorganized to comply with safety standards. He also made sure that all employees received proper training on safety procedures, with an emphasis on preventing accidents. Michael made it clear that the well-being of the staff was just as important as the store's operations, and from now on their voices would be heard. The management team, starting with Tim, was required to undergo leadership training that emphasized empathy, communication, and fair treatment of employees. As for customer service, Michael focused on revitalizing the store's culture. He implemented a new customer service training program that focused on the importance of treating customers with respect, patience, and attentiveness. He personally led some of the training sessions, sharing his vision for the store's future and encouraging employees to take pride in their work. Michael also made sure that the store's product knowledge and customer service skills were consistently evaluated through regular mystery shopper visits. He promised to hold managers and employees accountable for their actions and made sure to provide them with the tools they needed to succeed. It wasn't going to be easy, and Michael knew it would take time to rebuild trust, but he was committed to turning things around. The employees were hesitant at first, unsure if the changes would stick, but Michael's hands-on approach and willingness to listen to their concerns made them believe that this time things would be different. The shift wasn't just about fixing broken systems. It was about restoring dignity and respect to both the employees and customers. The transformation had begun, and there was no turning back. Michael understood that transforming the store's culture wasn't just about fixing systems. It It was also about empowering and supporting the employees who had been neglected for so long. His next focus was to offer tangible help to the staff, starting with improved communication. He set up weekly one-on-one meetings with employees at every level, ensuring they had a safe space to voice their concerns, ideas, and personal challenges. He introduced a new internal feedback system where employees could anonymously share their experiences, knowing they wouldn't face repercussions for speaking up. This allowed Michael to better understand the root of the issues and identify solutions more effectively. Next, Michael made a commitment to employee development. He introduced a mentorship program, pairing experienced workers with newer employees to provide guidance, training, and support. This not only helped improve skills, but also fostered a sense of camaraderie and teamwork within the store. Michael also implemented a performance recognition program to celebrate employee achievements, no matter how big or small. Whether it was improving customer satisfaction or showing initiative in organizing the store, Michael made sure to acknowledge hard work. Additionally, he worked on improving employee compensation and benefits. Michael raised wages for staff members who had been consistently overworked and underpaid. He also offered additional benefits like paid time off to ensure employees had the time to recharge and avoid burnout. Michael's actions quickly started to shift the atmosphere in the store. Employees who had felt undervalued began to regain their confidence and motivation. They knew that their well-being was a priority, and that made all the difference. Restoring customer trust was a vital step in Michael's plan to rebuild the store's reputation. After witnessing the appalling treatment of customers during his undercover stint, he knew that simply improving internal operations wouldn't be enough. He had to prove to customers that the store was genuinely committed to providing an exceptional experience. Michael initiated a new customer service training program focused on empathy, active listening, and problem solving. He emphasized that customers weren't just transactions, but valued individuals, deserving of respect and care. Staff were trained to approach every interaction with kindness, patience, and a solution-oriented mindset. To make a tangible impact, Michael introduced a customer satisfaction guarantee. If a customer was unsatisfied with a product or service, they could return it with no questions asked, and the store would work to rectify the issue. This bold promise was designed to restore confidence and show customers that their concerns mattered. He also implemented a loyalty program, rewarding repeat customers with discounts and exclusive offers, which encouraged continued patronage and word-of-mouth promotion. Additionally, Michael made efforts to directly engage with customers, seeking feedback through surveys and face-to-face conversations. By showing his commitment to listening and improving, he not only regained customer trust but also forged stronger relationships with the community. Slowly but surely, customers began to notice the positive changes. The staff were friendlier, the products were better presented, and the store atmosphere felt warmer and more welcoming. As a result, customer satisfaction soared and the once dwindling foot traffic began to increase again, signaling the successful restoration of both the store's reputation and its relationship with the community. The resolution marked a new era for Michael's company. By addressing both internal and external issues, he had set the store on a path of transformation. The immediate changes he implemented, such as overhauling management practices, fostering open communication, and prioritizing customer satisfaction, created a foundation for long-term success. The staff, once disengaged and demoralized, were now motivated and aligned with the company's core values of respect, quality, and service. Employee retention improved dramatically, and the store's reputation, once tarnished by neglect and exploitation, began to shift toward one of trust and excellence. As customer trust was rebuilt, the store's sales began to rise steadily. Word of mouth from satisfied customers, combined with the new loyalty program, contributed to increased foot traffic. The once dysfunctional store had now become a model of efficiency and customer care, attracting a loyal base of both new and returning customers. Michael's leadership had not only restored the store's operations, but also redefined the company's culture. He had transformed a place once marred by exploitation into a thriving, ethical business that truly valued its employees and customers. The success of this overhaul allowed Michael to focus on future growth opportunities. He began considering expanding his store's reach, possibly opening new locations with the same principles in mind. His journey as an undercover CEO had revealed the power of transparency, accountability, and empathy in leadership. Michael knew that with his team's commitment and the trust of his customers, the company was poised for a bright future, one where integrity and customer satisfaction would always be at the forefront. The lesson from this story is the power of hands-on leadership and the importance of truly understanding your business from all perspectives. By going undercover, Michael uncovered deep-rooted issues of exploitation and neglect that could have undermined his company's success. His actions demonstrated that effective leadership requires empathy, transparency, and a willingness to take immediate action. By addressing both employee concerns and customer dissatisfaction, he transformed a failing store into a thriving, customer-focused business. The story emphasizes that leadership is about trust, respect, and making difficult decisions for the betterment of both employees and customers.